Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and in this video I want to cover a little bit about Parasoul's gameplay and tips for her combos. And although I tag this as a beginner guide, in my opinion I think Parasoul is a slightly trickier character to use, more so than the other fighters that I've already covered, because you kinda have to act according to the situation. And this is different from the other fighters that I've showcased, where you just tap these 3 special moves in sequence to do a massive damage and you're done. But for Parasoul, it's slightly different, and I'll show you why. See, the thing with Parasoul is that most of her variants and gameplay revolves around spawning tiers and keeping tiers in the field. And there are 4 ways to spawn a tier. The first is a grab. The second is a dash attack. The third is a normal ground combo followed by an air launcher, an air juggle, and that'll spawn a tier. And the last is a down sweep. Now it is very important for you to practice this until it almost becomes muscle memory pretty much. And you can mix and match this in the corner to really spawn multiple tiers at once. For example, you can do a grab followed by a down sweep. This is very common and a really useful trick to do to spawn 2 tiers at once. You can do dash attack followed by down sweep, and that also spawns you at 2 tiers at once. But of course there's also blockbusters and special moves that can spawn a tier. So in here I have napalm shot, and if I press it, it spawns a tier and damages the opponent. There's also napalm toss and napalm shower. If you click it, they just spawn tiers to the ground. So I'm switching here to Peacock because this wouldn't work against double. But one thing you can do is double dash, napalm shot, and down sweep, and that spawns 3 tiers at once. So one of Parasoul's biggest strengths as a fighter is her utility. For example, she has access to immunity taunt. She has access to a taunt that gives you precision. She has egret dive, which can counter an attack to stun the opponent. As you see, all these moves that I just shown you, they're very good for utility, but they don't actually do damage, right? So you can't really use them for combos. They're just there to take up a space so that your fighter becomes better through buffs that they provide. And that's actually fine for Parasoul because she doesn't really need a lot of combos to work with. Low hit combos are usually more than enough for her. So one of the best moves you can equip is Canopy Bounce. It not only removes all buffs, but it also knocks the opponent up in the air, allowing you to do some more combos. And this is often comboed with either Sound Scope or Mortar Brigade, or you can do a ground combo. So Sound Scope is a very powerful blockbuster. It deals exactly 1 hit, but it's massive damage. It's a projectile, and it's really easy to use. Then we have Mortar Brigade, which is a much more powerful blockbuster. It deals more hits than Sound Scope, but it has a chance to stun the opponent, and it does crazy amounts of damage. And I like to use immunity taunt for most of the time, but again, this depends on the opponent you're facing, and you can easily swap this with anything you really want, really. And then there's napalm shot, but this is again a preference of mine. Some people don't like to use it, and that's completely fine. But if I were to recommend the moves that you absolutely need to have, that will be Canopy Bounce and Sound Scope. The other 3 I feel are optional. You can use whatever you want depending on the situation, and that's part of the reason why Parasoul again is, I believe, not very beginner friendly in comparison to the other fighters. So I'm gonna showcase a Parasoul gameplay using the typical Peacock Master node. But this time around, I usually do like a commentary on like, oh, you should do this, you should do this. You should start the combo now to kill the opponent. But this time, I'm gonna keep quiet so you can kind of understand where I'm going with this, why I said Parasoul is slightly trickier. You have to adapt to the situation. And because she doesn't really do a lot of combos, you can do some combos with her, but it's usually just to extend your attacks slightly more. I swear this is gonna make sense. So in the gameplay you just saw earlier, I did this really cool thing in Peacock where I used a ground combo, launched her into the air, kicked her with a dash attack, napalm shot, and then I caught her again using a ground combo at the corner. So if I were to repeat that, it'll be something like this. Ground combo, air launcher, dash attack, napalm shot, and then ground combo, followed by a canopy bounce, and maybe a sound scope. That's like the only impressive thing I could do with Parasoul, honestly. And the sad thing is that this really only works against Peacock. I haven't found any other character that I could use this with. So again, another thing you can do to extend your combos is that after a canopy bounce, you can do a ground combo to capture your opponent. And I think this only works against lightweights and middleweights, so I don't think you can do this with double or big band, for example. So if you've noticed, my combos in that gameplay is very simple. Most of what I did was I do a normal ground combo, air launcher, dash attack, and then I follow with a sound scope. Or I could do the same thing but with a mortar brigade instead. And that's all I really do. I just launch the opponent in the air and use my blockbuster to hit them. And that's usually more than enough, and it's quite effective as well to deal a lot of damage. Against Eliza, there was this one thing I did where I launched the opponent in the air and caught her with a napalm shot. But of course this doesn't work against all characters, because if I use Throw of Fortune here, for example, my napalm shot whiffed. So this is again another difficulty in using Parasoul, because some of her combos doesn't work against certain fighters. And you'll kind of have to figure this out on your own. So my preferred playstyle is to push the opponent to the corner as much as possible, and that's why I do a lot of dash attacks. Obviously this isn't really shown much in the gameplay, and I usually move back a lot because of the modifier in that fight, but you often want to corner your opponent because that gives you a lot of combo options, combo extenders, and a really easy way to concentrate your tiers in a certain area in the field for your signature abilities. For example, this works really well for Somersault and Shadow Ops. Ending a combo with a down sweep is almost always recommended, because down sweep again spawns a tier. Okay guys, so that's all I really have to say for this beginner video, because I don't want to make it super long. I could in theory attempt to fight different characters and see which combo works and which doesn't, but I think that's something I want you guys to figure out and explore. Just a tip, characters that are lighter in weight like Peacock and Valentine are much easier to combo with Parasoul than say Double, Big Ben, or Cerebella. So obviously there are multiple ways to use Parasoul because of her flexibility. What I just showcased is how I use her. And if you guys are interested in more Parasoul gameplay footage, I did upload a video a couple of months ago now on using Parasoul in high streak prize fights. So you can see how I use Parasoul in different situations. But of course, this is my playstyle. There may be other ways to play Parasoul. But the most important thing, I believe, is to figure out a way to maximize the tiers in the field as much as possible that is most comfortable with you. And some people use blockbusters and special moves to spawn their tiers instead, and that's completely fine. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a good day, and I'll see you next time.